What is up, harvesters? My name is Ken. Welcome back to the channel, to my subscribers. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you consider doing so by the end of this video. So today I want to talk to you guys about the so-called October lull. Is it real? Is it man-made? Is it just a natural phenomenon that happens? And so I want to get into that today, but I can only really share with you what my personal experience with the October lull is, or lack thereof. But I want you guys to leave comments down below just explaining sort of what you've experienced, especially if you maybe experienced something one way, you made some changes, and then you experienced it a different way. So I want this just kind of be an open community where we can all help each other and try to figure out what this whole October lull thing is all about. So first off, I want to share with you just what my experience with it is. So for those of you that don't know, I have property in southeastern Wisconsin and northwestern Wisconsin. So those are two very geographically different areas, but also very environmentally different areas. The topography is different. The type of plants that grow there is very different. They're two very different areas. The winter in those areas is different. The amount of egg in the areas is different. So they're two extremely different areas, even though they're in the same state of Wisconsin here. So what I have noticed on both of those properties, though, is I actually start to see an increase in deer activity through October. It starts to pick up, and then it just continues to increase all the way into the rut. And so I really have never seen this October lull that guys talk about. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't think that they're seeing it. Obviously this is coming from somewhere, right? So these guys have to be seeing this lull in October. But is it something that is like being created, or is it something that just naturally happens? And I kind of want to just go over like what my observations of it have been, or what I kind of think might be happening. And so I want you guys, though, to like let me know down in the comments what you think too, because I'm not exactly 100% sure on this. I don't know that anybody necessarily is. So maybe we all can just help each other out and figure out what exactly is going on in October with the deer movement. So one of the things that we could look at, of course, is how are humans impacting these areas, right? So we have our cameras out there, they're out there, and we're getting pictures of consistent deer and consistent buck movement coming in August, September, and then all of a sudden it just dies off in October. Well, what's happening that time of year? Well, right here in Wisconsin in September, we had bow opener, and a ton of guys go and hit the woods because they need to get out for opening day. Now, I'll let you guys in on a little secret. I did not hunt opening weekend of bow here in Wisconsin. I was actually in the Mississippi River fishing for walleyes, but it was too early for walleyes, and I also think it was a really bad weather time of year to be hunting for deer that weekend too. And just cruising around social media, not too many guys harvested anything that weekend. Even the brown it's down hunters didn't have much luck that weekend. And so even though they were in the woods, they probably were now painting all their scent in the woods. They're disturbing the woods as quietly as they're trying to get in and out and obviously be good hunters, but you can't help but spray scent everywhere you walk in the woods. There's no gimmicks, there's no special things you can buy that somehow mask your scent. Your scent is your scent. There are things you can do to like minimize it, but the number one thing you have to do is always hunt the wind, and then hunt those thermals too. So like I have harvested bucks that walked in directly downwind of me, but they were downhill of me in the morning when the thermals were coming up. So even though my wind was blowing straight at them, it was blowing over the top of them. And because of that, they weren't able to smell me because my scent wasn't actually being sprayed down to them, even though it was being sprayed at them because it was going over the top of them. So that's just one way. Just make sure your scent is going in a direction that is good for the stand or blind that you're sitting in. Now that, of course, you know, in that situation when I harvested that buck, he's coming in behind me. I'm of course hunting with my face into the wind, so I had to try to spin all the way around to get a shot on him. But luckily that was up on my northwestern Wisconsin property. There's a lot of big trees up there, so I take advantage of every time he steps behind when I shift a little bit to get turned around in those situations. But anyway, get back to this October lull. So I think just the fact that there is a lot of human pressure being applied in September for the opening of bow. Guys are like, hey, the season's open, I need to get out there. That's probably a reason for any lull you're seeing. So just think of that. Did you hunt a lot and then now you're not seeing deer where you were hunting, that could be a reason for that October lull in your area. Now, the other thing is if you're hunting public or hunting next to other areas, you know, people are out right now, they're out hiking, the weather's great, it's not too hot, but it's not too cold yet. So there's just a lot of human activity outdoors right now. You know, even on my smaller parcel here in southeastern Wisconsin, I'm dealing with my neighbors just out doing yard work, getting stuff tidied up before winter. So I'm getting a lot more human pressure out here, even though it is a private property parcel. But I'm still with that seeing an increase in the deer activity this time of year. The does have herded back up. They're not just with their fawns anymore. They may be herded back up with last year's doe fawn who now has her own fawns of her own, or maybe their sister who has her own fawn. So I'm seeing these big doe family groups coming in. But I'll let you guys in on a little secret. You don't just have to go off of what you're seeing on your property. I use social media to get an idea of what the deer are doing at any given time of year. So you know how social media works. Everybody's gonna post their best moment on social media, right? So the pictures these guys are posting back in like August, September, they'll be like, hey, look, I have 5-6 bucks on camera in one picture. Isn't this awesome? And then now we roll around to late September, we're getting into October now, and guys are showing you a picture of a single buck and they're asking, you know, what do you think he scores? What do you think he weighs? How old is he? You know, and that's great. That's all awesome. I love that kind of content on social media. I love going on there and commenting on it. I know a bunch of the other creators here on YouTube are active on those social media feeds as well, but you're not seeing those big bachelor groups anymore. You're seeing just a single buck by himself. So what that means is those bucks aren't traveling in those big bachelor groups anymore. Now that doesn't mean you aren't gonna see a buck or two together this time of year. Still, the rut hasn't started. They're not fighting each other off, but just by looking at social media, you can see that those big bachelor groups are starting to disperse, but also those single does or that doe with her 1 or 2 fawns are now herding back up in those bigger doe family groups this time of year as well. So that's just something you can use social media to do some scouting for you to see what the deer are doing at any given time of year, just because that's what guys are posting pictures of on there. And you don't necessarily have to go off of just what your trail cams are showing. So we know that that's happening. So like maybe you were seeing just single does or that doe with her fawn or 2 fawns or whatever, and now you don't see any does anymore. Well, that's because that one doe that was hanging out by you went and she moved back in with that bigger doe family group, probably on wherever the highest quality food source is in the area. That's why I talk about, you know, making sure you have that #1 high quality food source, because you're going to bring those does in. Of course, that's going to bring the bucks in, but just that food source on its own will bring the bucks in, but then also those does will bring the bucks in come rut and pre-rut. So it's just a good thing to have that #1 food source. But let's just say you were watching that doe, she was maybe on the #2 food source. Well, now she's on the #1, and that's why you maybe aren't seeing her anymore. But that happens with the bucks too. So you have those bucks during the summer months, you know, they don't want to be by the does when they're in velvet. So, but by the time they get hard horned, now they're like a little bit more ballsy or whatever, more confident to hang out with those does because they're not worried that they're going to mess their velvet up, but they're also far more likely to go into some thick cover. So does hang out in thick cover during the summer because it's good fawning ground. The bucks don't want to be in that thick cover because they don't want to ruin their velvet. But once they're hard horned, they move into that thick cover. That's why during hunting season, we always find deer in the thickest cover. So just that natural change in behavior of the herd going on this time of year might be also why guys are experiencing this October lull. So it could just be that you had more of a summer property and now the deer are starting to move into that more fall focused property. That's why I talk about that all the time, trying to develop that, because that's the time of year we hunt. So you want to see the deer in the fall. So you want property that attracts them during the fall. And if that means that they don't come there during the summer, well, yeah, you don't get to see them on camera. You don't get those nice velvet pictures and whatever and see what your bucks are developing into during the spring and summer, but you have them there to hunt them in the fall, right? Like that's what we're going for here. So you can sort of throw away that summer property in order to turn it into that fall property, because that's what really matters in this whole habitat improvement and hunting world, because that's when the seasons are for hunting. So That's two ways that I think might create the October lull for some guys. You know, the one being man-made, you might be over hunting that area. You know, I only hunt my stand down here in southeastern Wisconsin, which is really close to where I live. I could, if I wanted to, if my wife allowed me to, I should say, I could hunt every single day. I have a flexible enough work schedule that I could get out of work a little bit early. I could get in the stand. I could hunt till dark every single day, but I don't. On average, throughout almost the entire season, I'm only hunting about one time a week. And I'm doing that on the best day to hunt. So we know, like, you want to hunt the weather, you know, hunt the backside of those cold fronts. If you had a big temperature drop, get out there. Just like when you go outside, you know, you're outside all summer and you're used to it being, say, 70, 80 degrees, right? And all of a sudden it's 40 degrees and you step outside and you get that like chill, like you're cold. But in the winter here in Wisconsin, you could be used to it being 10 to 20 degrees and all of a sudden you get a 40-degree day and you're like, wow, it's nice and warm out. Those 40-degree days didn't change their temperature, but what you were used to experiencing and what it turned into is what made you get that chill summer going down to 40 instead of winter going up to 40. So deer feel that too, but then they get accustomed to it. But when they get that chill, they want to get out, they want to move, they want to put the feed bag on, and that's your chance to get out and hunt and see some additional deer movement. So that's why it's great to hunt the backside of those cold fronts, but also hunt precipitation. So if it rains heavily for like a day or two, get out and hunt after that, because those deer are going to stay hunkered down. They're going to stay in their like daytime bedding areas a lot longer for a longer period of the day. They're not going to go and hit up those high quality food sources that are out in the open, the egg fields, the food plot, stuff like that. They're going to be very hungry when that weather system, that rain, or if it's in the winter and it's like a really bad blizzard or like freezing rain or something, like get out and hunt after that, because you're going to see increased deer movement because they need to go and replenish all of those calories they lost while they were just trying to hunker down and weather that storm. So those are two great times to hunt. Like I said, I hunt like once a week. So I usually pick the best day that week to hunt and I hunt that day. And I'll set up things at work that I can get out early that day or whatever, and, you know, plan ahead with the wife for watching the kids and stuff. We have 2 young kids, so that is really difficult to try to just drop them on her, but she knows, you know, that I do all this stuff. And if I can pick that number one day to hunt each week and really put all my eggs in that basket, I stand a much higher probability of harvesting an animal than if I were to sit every day, because you're actually doing more harm than good by sitting for all of those days. So you really want to just sit those high percentage, high quality days. There's apps out there if you guys want to use those too. They can really help you out. There's free versions of them that are pretty useful, but if you get beyond the paywall, they give you a lot more information. You know, go use those if you want to. Also, they're not actually that expensive. You know, how much money have we all spent on different hunting gear and stuff? Like, why don't you go give those app creators just a little bit of money and really help your hunt a lot more that way than maybe with an extra piece of gear that's not helping you all that much out in the woods. So, you know, go use those. But if you don't want to, like I said, just hunt the backside of those cold fronts, backside of those weather patterns, that precipitation, and that'll end up being a really good time for you to hunt. Now, the other thing with this October lull is, yes, it could be natural that the deer just are starting to behave more like they behave in the fall, and because of that, maybe you had more of a summer property and now they're shifting more to how they behave and they're being attracted to those fall properties, and maybe that's why you're seeing an October lull. But I don't think it's necessarily something that we can't fix. Like, I think the best thing we can do is create a fall focused property that's by putting in fall focused food, not a summer food, because deer don't need food in the summer. Everything out here is green in the summer. They have plenty of food. So make sure they have that fall focused food that's really going to start to bring them in at the beginning of October, like I said, and then just keep increasing till the rut. But it's also fall cover. So it's things like, you know, we talk about switchgrass, we talk about putting in that red osier dogwood, any browse that they can get at. You know, box elders, young box elders are great. Aspen regeneration up north is really great. Anything that puts those soft shrubs or trees close to the ground for them to chew on during those winter months is going to do a lot for attracting them and holding them in an area, but also for just helping them through the winter, keeping a healthy deer herd, not having them compete too much for those food sources throughout the winter, which can put a lot of stress on your herd, and you'll just make sure you're carrying a healthy herd into next season as well, and that'll increase your chances at harvesting what you want to years and years to come by focusing on those fall focused properties, but also that transition in and through the winter for them as well. So those are my thoughts on the October lull. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts on the October lull is. Do you guys see the October lull, or do you see what I see, like an increase in activity throughout October? You know, and be honest, have you overhunted a stand and then all of a sudden you didn't see deer there for a couple weeks? Or did you let a stand sit unhunted for weeks and then you sat in it and it was just an awesome hunt for you? You know, let me know down in the comments. Let's help each other out with this whole October lull thing. If you guys feel like you got some value out of this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.